Hi, my name is Palak Mengi, and today is my first assessment, which is related to reflective pediology as a pre-service early childhood learning. So, moving to my first slide, which is about reflection on acting as a pre-service ECT. As a pre-service early childhood teacher, I ask how do Rosio, Regilo, Emila, Vygotsky, and Bron Fenbrenner sharpen the way I notice children and respond. EYLF vision principle practices and 5 learning outcomes, which are identify connectedness, well-being, confident, and involved learners, effective communicators. I organize my reflection using the planning cycle of observing, analyzing, planning, implementing, and evaluating using critical reflection. ACECQA 2018 outlines the NQS as the national benchmark. The NQS, which is the benchmark by which I check if my decisions are indicative of quality in the quality areas. Moving to my next slide. So my third slide is about historical lens, Rosio and child-centered natural development. In placement, I first use the term non-compliance, which is help to describe a child refusal to participate in math time, but Rosio uses the term autonomy and development readiness. Rosio stated that education should be about protecting natural development and prioritizing discovery over abstract instruction. Cell and a week 2025, they implemented that. I went from my insisted on group compliance to optional points of entry, which I personally observed the child was involved in some small group storytelling and then gradually went to the math. The Australian Government Department of Education 2022, they supports this interpretation by making play-based learning central to holistic learning. ACECQA 2018 is also a requirement for child-centered programming, making my modification an equity-aware curriculum decision rather than one of permissiveness. Now, my next slide is about which is about contemporary approach in which we are going to talk about children's rights, relationships, environment, and documentation. Reggio Emilia positions children as right-bearing, capable meaning makers, which challenges me to treat children ideas as curriculum and not as a cute moments. Edward Gedani and Forman in the year 1998 have various identified the 100 languages as multiple symbolic ways children theorize. So I planned for varied media and representation. In the year 2021, Rinaldi describes a pedagogy of listening which made me slow down and record children hypotheses rather than jumping to conclusion. Strong, Wilson, and Ellis in the year 2007 show how the environment serves as a third teacher. So I redesigned a shadow provocation using torches and loose parts. This is genuine QA1, QA3, QA6 evidence, not documentation for display aesthetic complaints. Moving to my next slide. This slide is related to ZPD, scaffolding, and intentional teaching in play context. In this, I want to explain during one block play, a child bridge fell down many times, and I was tempted to repair it. Vygotsky in the year 1978 defines the ZPD as what a learner is capable of doing with guidance beyond independent capability. So, I use graduated prompts with what could make it stronger, modeled one stabilizing strategy, then faded support. The structure and then coached appear in the strategy. The NQS names intentional teaching and responsive teaching and scaffolding, which justified my intervention as being deliberate rather than intrusive. I did not want to over scaffold so as to protect the agency. Australian Government Department of Education in the 2022 year positions play-based learning and intentionally as complementary. Now, just talk about my next slide, which so it's related to bioecological system, which is a behavior and strengthening partnerships for well-being. Following a family separation, the child arrived withdrawn and dysregulated, and my impulse was to tighten expectation. Braun Ben Brenner, 1979 year, described development using nested systems. So I interrupted the change as a meosystem disruption and not a fixed rate. With my mentor, I stabilized routines introduced a quiet arrival space and used visual supports. Australian government, again Department of Education 2022 year, highlight partnerships and being responsive to context for respectful conversation with family about sleep and transition. I recorded the changes and reviewed them with my mentor on a weekly basis. This aligns with QA6 relationship and QA2 well-being, which changes my focus in this situation from control to support. At last, I want to talk about across placement. I am aiming for child center with no laissez failure. I am trying to protect autonomy and teach intentionally and relationally. Australian Government Department of Education in the year 2022 guides me to align decision to the EYLF outcomes through play-based learning, responsive relationships and equity. I create an evidence trial, planning notes, learning stories, environment adaptations and family communication map to QA1, A3, A6, A5, and A7. ACECQA 2023b defines critical reflection as looking at experiences from different perspectives with implications for inclusion. So I inquire into my assumption and biases. ACECQA uses the term exceeding as embedded practice, informed reflection, and meaningful engagement, which I consider professional aspiration. Thank you so much.